Hey everyone, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I'm Spencer.
And I'm Katie. Today we are going to be talking about sexuality. So we're going to start off here with the circles of sexuality. It says sexuality encompasses nearly every aspect of our being, from attitudes and values to feelings and experiences. It is influenced by the individual, family, culture, religion, spirituality, laws, professions, institutions, science, and politics. So right in the center, we've got values. And we'll start here with sensuality. So, sensuality involves our level of awareness, acceptance, and enjoyment of your own or others' bodies. That can include skin hunger, oral visual stimuli, sexual response cycle, body image, and fantasy. And then intimacy is the degree to which we express and have a need for closeness with other person. Its components are caring, sharing, liking, loving, trust, vulnerability, self-disclosure, and emotional risk-taking. Intimacy includes caring, sharing, loving, liking, risk-taking, vulnerability, self-disclosure, and trust. Then we have sexual identity. Sexual identity is how we perceive ourselves as a sexual being. Its components are biological gender, gender identity, gender role, and sexual orientation. Sexual health and reproduction. This relates to attitudes and behaviors towards our health and the consequences of sexual activity. Its components are behavior, anatomy, and physiology, sexually transmitted infection, contraception, and abortion, spontaneous or induced. So, yeah, it includes sexual behavior, anatomy, and physiology, sexual reproductive systems, contraception, abortion, and sexually transmitted infections. And then lastly, sexualization involves how we use our sexuality and may include manipulating or controlling others. Its components are media images, messages, flirting, seduction, withholding sex, sexual harassment, and sex and rape. So sexualization seems mostly bad here.
Yeah, I was like, that one seems pretty bad. I mean, like the
Except for the
flirting
flirting.
is different, but
And media
obviously,
messages and images can be good or bad. They usually tend
yeah,
to lean towards bad.
yeah, it
Seduction is not
depends.
inherently bad. Oh,
No,
sorry, what were you saying?
I was just gonna say the media depends on what they're trying to do with it. Like that, it
Exactly.
isn't inherently bad though.
Right. Then withholding sex, which
That's wrong.
is,
Like
yeah,
it's if
like
you're
if you're,
using
I
it,
mean, if you don't want to have sex just because you don't want to, that's one thing. But if
yes,
you're specifically withholding sex as a manipulation tactic, then it's bad.
yes,
And then there's, of course, sexual harassment, incest, and rape, all pretty objectively bad.
yeah. But I
So
do
that
think it's important to realize that there, like, because I always feel like people, whenever they consider talking about sexuality, always assume it means sexualization. So I do like how this shows that it's almost like a spectrum of, like,
it's
sexuality is
it's
a,
under the umbrella of sexuality, but it's not
yes,
all sexuality is,
yeah, exactly.
right? And then we're going to go over actually the best. I looked at a bunch of lists to try to find some good descriptors for different terms for sexualities. And oddly enough, Cosmopolitan really came in. I think they had the best list
Okay,
that I saw. So I'm just going to skip down to the list.
yeah,
Oh, I'll just point out here there's no fixed numbers of sexualities, and the below list might not include exactly how someone identifies or whether they define their orientation differently than the commonly accepted definition. So let's see, there's abrosexual. An abrosexual person is someone with fluid sexuality whose sexuality and preferences may change throughout their lives. Different levels of sexual and romantic feelings throughout time are very common, and sometimes people identify their sexuality as fluid. But the distinction for an abrosexual person is that these periods of change can happen quickly and with different intensities. It can also look like changing one's actual sexual orientation. There's no limitation or norm regarding an abrosexual person's orientation, but it often shifts between 2 to 3 sexualities in regular or random cycles. Catherine Winnick, a sex coach at letstalksex.net, has told Cosmo. Then we have allosexuals. It's simply a person who experiences any kind of sexual attraction, so it covers sexualities on this list that don't fall under asexuality. The asexual community has called attention to the privilege inherent in this identity since it's considered the norm sexuality. And then we have androsexual. There's a few different definitions of androsexuality, but the most common is a person who is attracted to individuals on the masculine side of the gender spectrum. Dr. J. Irwin, Associate Professor of Sociology at University of Nebraska at Omaha, has told Cosmo. Sometimes this is interpreted as individuals who are attracted to cisgender men, that is, people who are assigned male at birth and also identify as men, but that binary-based definition is typically too narrow for how individuals who identify as androsexual see their sexuality. So it may mean, for example, that an androsexual person is attracted to aspects of masculinity regardless of one's sex assigned at birth, including physical appearance, behavior, smell, and so on. A lesser used definition of androsexual is someone who is attracted to non-binary people. Then we have asexual. A catch-all that very broadly means a person who doesn't experience sexual attraction to other people. Although there's a false stereotype to the contrary, asexual people may want friendships, emotional intimacy, and potentially love connections. Note, asexual is also not the same as celibate, which is the choice to not have sex. If you're asexual, you may desire close relationships with people, even romantic ones, but the idea of touching each other's genitals is not particularly thrilling. Then we have autosexuals. They have a specific sexual attraction toward themselves. Sometimes it's wrongly confused with narcissism, which is characterized by a lack of empathy and the need for adulation, and it is not a sexuality. People who are autosexual are able to have relationships with others but have a preference for sex with themselves. If you get turned on by watching yourself have sex in the mirror or get aroused by posing in erotic lingerie, that's not necessarily a sign of autoeroticism. Catherine Hartline, MD, expert advisor at sex therapy at Blue Heart, has told Cosmo. However, if the thought of having sex with yourself turns you on, or you have to think about yourself to climax, then you're probably autosexual. So, bisexual. A bisexual person has an attraction to more than one gender. It can be used somewhat interchangeably with pansexual, but bisexuality can mean attraction to your own gender as well as other genders. It doesn't need to be an equal attraction to particular genders either. Bi people don't necessarily just date in the binary, i.e. only men and women, which is true. And then Danielle Saint, founder of the New Society for Wellness Members Only Sex Club in New York, has told Cosmo the term bisexual is actually the blanket designation for anyone who is pansexual, demisexual, sapiosexual, which I could talk about that. I kind of don't like that term. Trisexual, homoflexible, heteroflexible, curious, questioning, undecided, or fluid. In part because of its broad definition, it makes up the largest percentage of the LGBTQIA community. Really, I did not know that. Then there's heterosexual. It is someone who is attracted to folks who are transgender, non-binary, and sometimes not cisgender. It used to be called scoliosexual, but because that means crooked in Latin, it is no longer considered an appropriate term and shouldn't be used. The term isn't without controversy. It can be used as viewed as fetishizing. Someone who is heterosexual may also be trans or non-binary. Closeted. This isn't a specific sexuality per se, and more of an indication that a person is not out, i.e. publicly acknowledging some or all aspects of their orientation. This might be for a whole host of reasons, including safety and personal preference. Cupiosexual. This falls under asexuality as a person who wants a sexual relationship with a person but experiences little to no attraction. The term is rising in popularity. They may enjoy the experience of sex without being attracted to anyone. An asexual person simply does not feel sexual attraction, but may have sex for a host of reasons, including the physical pleasure of sex or the pleasure of their partners. Demisexual. Technically, demisexuality falls under the umbrella of asexuality, but it actually speaks to people who only form sexual attraction to a person once they have formed a close emotional bond with them. So they're capable of sexual attraction in specific circumstances. And then gay or lesbian. Someone who experiences exclusive physical, romantic, and or emotional attraction to people of their same gender. A lesbian is specifically someone who identifies as a woman and is attracted to women. Some people prefer to use this self-identification. FYI, the term homosexual or homosexuals is considered outdated, derogatory, and offensive, I guess. Which, I mean, I'm willing to not use that word. It doesn't bother me to take it out of my vocabulary. I just never heard that.
Oh, yeah, that's weird, in my opinion,
Yeah,
because it's just it's hetero. It's just like heterosexual. It's not a.
right.
I mean, it can be used derogatorily, of
Right.
course. Anything
Yes.
can, but and if someone's using it derogatorily, then yes, we can call them out. But I don't think we should
Right.
like call anyone out who uses it. Like if someone says it and they're not trying to be rude about it, I don't
'Cause
see the point
someone
in yelling
could,
at them.
one, I, in my, if homosexuals is derogatory and outdated and like any of these terms would be derogatory, outdated, and offensive, because any of these could be used
Yeah,
derogatorily.
any of them can
But
be. So I think that's the big thing is can.
yes, exactly. So there's gray sexual, gray ace. Also, under the asexuality spectrum, a gray sexual person may occasionally experience sexual attraction and feelings, but it's the expectation, or it's the exception, not the norm. They might experience attraction a few times in their life or more, but it's at a lower rate than average. It can be helpful to think of a gray sexual person as asexual for the vast majority of their lives, but having infrequent periods where they feel sexual attraction. Outside of these rare occurrences, they are virtually identical to asexual individuals. And there's gynosexual. Someone who's gynosexual is attracted to women, females, and or femininity, regardless of sex assigned at birth. It's the opposite of being androsexual, which is the attraction to masculinity or maleness, regardless of sex assigned at birth. It is also different from identifying as gay or lesbian. Heteroflexible or homoflexible. A heteroflexible person is someone who. Wait, but okay. Sorry, before I read, if homosexual is outdated and derogatory and all of that, then how is homoflexible not under the same umbrella? Like, in my brain, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because is
Because
it
it's
the
based off
homo
of the same
part or
word.
is it the sexual part that they think is
I
derogatory?
think it's the whole word. I don't know if it's a specific part. I mean, I don't know, I guess.
But yeah, if you're saying homo flexible, that's
It's confusing.
I just don't yeah, I just personally I just don't see how
Yeah,
homosexual is. Like I wouldn't find it insulting if someone
right. I
called it
wouldn't be
me.
insulted. Like,
Yeah.
although
Because it
I'm not like completely gay,
well,
but
yeah, but
yeah. So a heteroflexible person is someone who primarily feels attracted to people of the opposite gender, but may be open or flexible to sexual experiences outside that category. In general, it means that the person considers themselves heterosexual despite the fact that they are willing to participate in sexual activities with someone of the same sex or gender. It means different things to different people because the situations surrounding the flexibility vary greatly from one person to another. Conversely, someone who is homoflexible considers themselves primarily attracted to people of their same gender, but may occasionally be attracted to sexual activity with people not of the same gender. And then, of course, there's heterosexual and straight. Someone who's heterosexual experiences exclusive physical, romantic, and or emotional attraction to people of their opposite gender. Multisexual. Bisexuality, omnisexuality, pansexuality, and some definitions of queer all exist under the identity multisexuality. So, okay. Now we're going to get into some stuff where it's like we kind of it'll be a little repetitive here, it seems, but we'll read each of these and see if there's any differences. So, an omnisexual person can be romantically and or sexually attracted to all people no matter the gender. Someone who experiences only romantic feelings may be referred to as omniromantic. They can experience attraction to different genders in different ways, and they're not blind to gender differences. I'm attracted sexually to people, and when I am with someone, their gender matters. I see it, but gender is not why I am attracted to them, and it's not a factor when I am attracted to them. So, pansexual, attracted to people of any gender. As the sex therapist has told Cosmo, a pansexual person is someone who is attracted to people regardless of gender or biological sex. That is irrelevant. Pansexuality holds space for the idea that gender is very fluid. For a pansexual person, their attraction lies in personality, vibes, energy, morals, and or other attributes. All right, so I'm going to chime in here just to clarify some stuff. Bisexuality and pansexuality. I don't know much about omnisexuality, so I'm not going to comment on that. I haven't really heard much about that. But as far with bisexuality and pansexuality, they're interchangeable. It's the same thing. It's really just a preference of which term you want to use. So bisexuality does not mean that we're not open to dating people of all genders, nor does it mean that gender plays any kind of important role in our relationships. The preference of whether or not one would date a trans person is completely irrelevant to these identities. And I also think that like the attraction lying in personality, vibes, and energy and morals, like I don't think that's exclusive to pansexuality. Like I mean, if you want to identify as pansexual, like that's not a problem or anything. But it's really, like I said, it's a personal choice which term you want to use, but they're pretty interchangeable.
Yes. I would agree with that. I have something to add, but I was going to wait until we get through all of these.
Oh, okay. That's fine. Just remind me then.
No, yeah. Just cuz you were at that
Oh, yeah.
point. So, but mine is more so an overall
Okay.
just statement, just my opinion. And as yeah. I mean, I don't think it's bad opinion, but people may dislike it and that's okay cuz they don't
Right.
we don't have to like everything everyone says.
Exactly. And like, the LGBTQ community is not a monolith. Like, it's not, we don't all agree on every single
Oh,
thing. Like, just
definitely.
because you have the same sexuality as someone doesn't mean all of your opinions are going to perfectly
Yeah,
align.
and that's okay. As long as no
Yeah,
one's hurting anyone, it's okay to have different opinions.
exactly.
Because even with your opinion, you're not saying people can't identify as pansexual or that
Right.
pansexual should be abolished as a term. You're just stating your opinion on how you feel about it, but you still
Right.
respect anyone who wants to identify as either.
Yeah. Like, yeah, because I guess, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Uh, yeah, I lost my train of thought. All right, I'll move on to polysexual. So that's someone who's attracted to many, but not necessarily all genders and identities. Also, it can be confused with, but is not the same as polyamory, which is a relationship style that engages in multiple consenting romantic and or sexual relationships. A polysexual person may ignore the gender binary as it pertains to their attraction to others. Usually, when we talk about sexuality, it's very much rooted in binaries, so man, woman, or non binary folk. But I think there's a conversation that can be had looking at sexuality beyond that. Polysexuality can look different for each person, explains Glover, but it can include, for example, being attracted to all genders except cisgender men, or attracted to masculine presenting folks regardless of gender. And then pomosexual. For a person who's homosexual, their sexuality doesn't fit into a particular category and or they reject labels around their orientation entirely. It can be both an umbrella term and a sexuality. A homosexual person may feel attraction, but they don't want to elaborate on how often, to whom. Okay. I just sorry. I don't mean to be disrespectful or of anybody, but I just think it's kind of ironic that you're rejecting labels by putting a label on yourself. But like I understand where the thought I understand where the feelings coming from and why you would want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's ironic that it is a label. But like it makes sense to label it so people are at least aware,
And I
you
feel
know.
like it's probably more so those people aren't even calling themselves that. It's more so somebody came up with that label for them just to
That,
maybe
yeah,
help themselves understand those people in a way. But I highly doubt
that's
someone
true.
who doesn't like labels is gonna label themselves, I guess I would
Right.
say.
That
But
makes a
then
lot
they
more
someone
sense.
just made a label for it, which is I'll talk. I mean, I just yeah,
Yeah, we
I
can.
yeah. You we'll keep going through this, and then we can talk about
Yeah.
labels, what I
Yeah, we
think
just got
about
two
it
more to
in a
go
second.
here.
Okay.
So queer. Queer can be a blanket term to describe someone in the LGBTQIA plus community, but it can also describe a person who identifies as gay. It used to be a derogatory term, but now it's being reclaimed as a positive expression of one's orientation, gender identity, or inclusion in the LGBTQIA community. Questioning. As the name implies, a person who's questioning their sexuality may not yet be identifying with a particular orientation. Sometimes someone might identify themselves as curious or bi-curious, someone exploring whether they're bisexual. But these terms can also be associated with the mistaken belief that queer sexual orientation is just a phase, and thus some people don't use it. The Q in LGBTQIA holds space for people exploring and discovering their orientation, and a person can be questioning for as long as they need. All right, so you can give your opinion.
So, I mean, some of this is not my opinion. I'm just gonna. Well, okay. So, anytime we're. I like to always try to think what would the other side say? Because A, I think it's good to just think from all perspectives if you're able to. And then
Mm,
B, I always like to think ahead so that we can look now rather than after our video is released and then people start. And
yeah,
there still may be things that I didn't think of from the other side may come or think of, and we can have those discussions if they bring them up. But some things I thought they might bring up is if there's all these identities, how is it not a choice? So with that, for me, in my opinion about it is it's not it's not a choice, obviously. And I sent you an article that maybe we
yeah.
could look at quick too that talks about
Okay.
genetics and all that in
Oh, yeah. Send me that.
Messenger. I just sent you should have it in Messenger.
Okay.
But basically what I want to say about that is cuz I think another argument they'll have is that how are you're changing the facts. But no, we're not facts are not changing. Facts I mean, I don't know. You can claim facts can't change or can change. That's irregardless. Our knowledge can expand, and that's what's happening. Is
Yeah.
we're getting more definitive. It's not changing facts. It's just that we're more able to understand and define these things that we didn't have definitions for in the past. Whether that's because they were ostracized in the past, so people couldn't talk about it and maybe understand each other, or we just didn't talk about it. And maybe our knowledge just in general is expanding, which is good. Knowledge should expand. Because again, we're not changing any facts at
Right.
all. Because this is changing a fact would I guess I don't even know what how you would change a fact. I guess changing a fact to me is denying that sexuality exists. That would be changing the facts because
Yeah.
sexuality does exist. We're just
And
expanding the definition and like giving more people more identity
yeah.
terms that they can maybe. And then what I had to say about that is, do we need all these sexual identities? I mean, maybe not, but if it helps people feel more comfortable with themselves and helps them understand themselves, who does it hurt?
Right. And I think that I would phrase it in the sense that choosing your how you label yourself is a choice, but the inherent attraction you have for whoever you're attracted to, that is not a choice.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Because some of them are pretty similar, so then it's kind of just figuring out which one you feel like represents you more.
Yeah.
But obviously, someone who's heterosexual wouldn't choose to label themselves as gay or bi
Yeah.
unless they felt that way. So again, but that's not a choice either, which is why I wanted that article that might help
Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll
briefly
go over that.
support our claim that it's not a choice, or not even a claim, support the fact that it's not a choice.
Right.
Um, but yeah, because for me personally, I've never been someone who cares to identify myself, but I'm not like against other people identifying their like to me, I
Yeah.
just don't really care for labels, but
So
that's my
you would
own.
be more I mean, like, not to label you, but like you would
Yeah, I guess
homosexual, kind
out
of.
of those, I feel like I would go with homosexual. I guess if I had to label
Yeah.
myself, then I would label myself without labeling myself. Because to me, it just, I don't know. But I also am not against label. Like if these help people understand themselves and feel comfortable in their own bodies, then I'm all for it. It's
Yes.
just to me personally, I just don't care to label myself, I guess. And not that it makes anyone better or worse if they need a label or don't need a label. It's just how I feel.
Yeah. The one I did want to talk about, though, the term they and under this bisexual umbrella, they included sapiosexual, which, if you don't know what that is, a sapiosexual people who identify that they say they're attracted to intelligence, which,
Um,
it's, I mean, I'm attracted to intelligence, but like I would never, I just don't like the term sapiosexual because, like, I mean, I don't think we need a label for each individual personality trait we're attracted to, I guess. And I think
yeah.
it, calling yourself a sapiosexual kind of like, it just seems pretentious to me, honestly. And like, I think it kind of puts down people who maybe aren't as intelligent, like,
Yeah.
in a sense, because, like, I don't know. I just have I just really don't like that term.
Yeah. And that's just fair.
Like, I just think it's like, yeah, I just think it's kind of a pretentious way of like trying to make yourself feel superior to other people. I think that's what it is.
And I guess I was wondering how, because I guess there another claim that I thought of and was trying to look up is, well, why do you keep adding sexual identities? So I guess I don't how new are some of these too? Like is
Yeah,
sapiosexual new or is it old and then was hidden? Like how
yeah.
obviously we lost that library. I mean, I don't know if sexualities were in that library. Was it the Alexandria library that
Oh, I don't
burned
even
with
know.
all that knowledge?
Yeah, I don't even know
Supposedly.
what it is.
I think it was the Library of Alexandria that they burned when
Interesting.
they were burning books, I think. Because
Yeah.
knowledge is dangerous.
Yes.
Um, but I just wonder how, because I mean, I will, like, I'm not gonna say that I agree, but I do think it is. I mean, it's not, how do I want to say this? Because it's not a bad thing, but I guess I do think the more labels we add, the more confusing it can get. I'll say that.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, yeah, we don't want to have so many labels that, like, labels lose all meaning because they're just so individualized after a certain point that, like, they're
Yeah.
not even a label anymore. They're
And then
just like an
I
individual trait.
also worry about labels starting to divide us rather than
Yeah.
unite us. Would be
Yeah.
another concern of mine if we keep extending labels. And again, I'm not against if someone is having trouble fitting in, feeling like they don't fit into any of these labels per se, but feeling like they want to label themselves. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But it's just I don't want these to divide us, and
Yeah.
I don't want people. And sometimes I feel like it can be almost stressful if you try to look at like feeling like you have to identify as something. So it's okay to not
Yeah.
want to or not feel like you can identify as either of these, but you are still part of the LGBTQ community. That's okay. You do not have to pick the label. And in that sense, if someone was like, "Oh, well, that means you're promosexual," was that what it was? Promo or pomo?
Homosexual, I think.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if someone's like, "Oh, well, that means you're pomosexual," and if you're like, "Well, that doesn't fit me either," that's okay. Don't
Yeah.
don't let somebody try to tell you what you are either. I guess is what I would
Yeah.
say.
No one can tell you what your identity is
Yes.
except for you. Like, that's a personal journey that,
Yes. And for me,
and I
if
mean, other people
people,
can help you
yeah,
to find
and
yourself, but they can't label you.
yeah, and to me, that's why I don't worry about labels too much because if people want to label me as whatever, I don't care because they're people do that anyways. So I guess it's also about not letting them like not letting that get to you either if you can, which
Yeah.
isn't easy, but people are going to whether they're labeling you in a derogatory way or even if they're trying to be helpful but you just feel like they're trying to and like be like, oh well, no, you're homosexual, and you're like, well, I don't know if that's me, and they're like, no, you are. Like that, even if they feel like they're trying to be helpful, it could still be rude because you're still trying to tell someone what they are when maybe they don't feel that way, you know. So I think
Yeah.
it's just important to, if someone, we just have to respect each other is basically what it comes down to. If
Yeah.
someone doesn't want to use a label, we can't force them to use a label, and that's okay. And I don't even know if people are trying to. I'm just saying if that were to happen, we
That
can't
does
be
happen
doing that.
sometimes.
Okay. Yeah, we can't be doing that. That's not okay. That kind of defeats the whole purpose, in my opinion, of, because the labels are supposed to help us understand ourselves and then connect with each other. They're not supposed to be something that we have to use, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So this next little bit here, I'm not going to go over the whole article, but
That's fine.
um, I was just curious about different like sexual identities that non-binary people would have. And so I looked these up on this website. This is the website, it's pronounced metrosexual.com,
No.
which is, I think it's kind of a cool name. It's a funny name. But yeah, so we've got androsexual, androphilic, attracted to males, men, and or masculinity. As we talked about that before, we also talked about the gynosexual, gynophilic, attracted to females, women, and or femininity. I guess this is the outdated term, according to Cosmo, but the scoliosexual, attracted to gender, queer, and transsexual. Oh, well, this might be a little dated. Yeah, transsexual people and expressions, people who aren't identified as cisgender. Pansexual, attracted to all people regardless of biological sex, gender identity, or expression, interchangeable with bisexuality, of course. And asexual, non-sexual, no sexual attraction, but often romantic or spiritual attractions exist. And then, all right, next up, we've got from Michigan State University. This is sexuality versus sexualization. Why is it important to know the difference? Talking about media messages with kids requires that adults understand how marketers sexualize girls and women. Let's see. So, all right. Shining the light on commercials can provide an opportunity for young people and adults in their lives to look beyond the production and quality values used by marketers. By offering opportunities for dialogue, adults can help adolescents look more deeply into the content of commercials and other kinds of media in order to examine cultural messages about gender, sexuality, race and ethnicity, class, sexual orientation, disabilities, and other areas of human differences. These kinds of interactions can help many young people develop important media literacy skills. Excuse me. As you consider having these kinds of conversations with kids in your life, it's important to know the difference between healthy sexuality and sexualization. Let's see. So this report that the APA conducted, emphasized that healthy sexuality, which is an important aspect of our physical and mental health, involves the mutual respect of consenting partners and fosters intimacy, bonding, and shared pleasure. So in contrast, the report stressed that sexualization occurs when a person's value is limited to his or her sexual appeal or behavior at the exclusion of all other kinds of characteristics. In other words, all those parts of us that contribute to our wholeness, such as our intelligence, abilities, values, interests, and passions, are absent from sexualized messages and images. A person is held to a standard that equates physical attractiveness with being sexy. For girls and women, these standards are too often narrowly defined and involve unattainable and unrealistically perfect sexualized body types. A person is sexually objectified. This means that a person is made into an object or thing for sexual pleasure of others, as opposed to being portrayed as a person with a capacity for independent action and decision making. Sexuality is inappropriately imposed upon a person. While people of any age can be sexualized, the report stressed that when children are portrayed with adult sexuality, it is imposed upon them rather than chosen. Throughout their development, children and adolescents are constantly bumping up against a media world filled with sexualized images of young people as well as sexualized products. Consider the ways that many female dolls and cartoon characters have changed over time to become more and more sexualized. So the APA report highlights many research studies about the negative effects of sexualization on girls, including cognitive functioning, physical and mental health, such as eating disorders and depression, sexuality development, and attitudes and beliefs. For example, girls who more frequently consume or engage with mainstream media content are more likely to endorse sexual stereotypes that portray women as sexual objects. They're also more likely to police, bully, or reject other girls for not conforming to narrow standards of sexualized beauty. Sexualizing and objectifying media has also been linked to girls' and boys' attitudes about dating, relationships, boys' sexual harassment of girls, and attitude towards sexual violence. And among the recommendations within the AP report is the need for an increased focus on media literacy for enhancing our ability to critically consume the hundreds of media messages we're faced with daily. Having a clear understanding between sexualization and healthy sexuality is important for adults who want to help young people develop these skills. Then they've got some resources here. And yeah. And while sexualization can happen to anybody, it does there you know, it does happen a lot more to women than to men. But that's not to say it never happens to men.
Yeah, I think it's just
And
because of the way our society was built is like I don't
right.
think it if I think it's just the way society was built is what I would say,
Yeah.
I guess.
It's just
But it does
and
happen more to women. Yes, obviously, cuz that's
yeah.
what our society founded women to
Right.
be is objects, which is
Yeah.
wrong,
It has a lot to
obviously.
do with our gender roles and like what society has told us that um, the role of our gender is, which is a lot of the time to be a sexual object. That is a part
Yeah.
of just the way that's just a part of womanhood, which it shouldn't be inherent to womanhood at all. But that's just the way the way the patriarchy has come down on us.
Yeah. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Right. We can change that for sure. And
Yeah.
that's why having these conversations is important.
Oh yeah, 100%. I wonder but they said toys were being more sexualized is what they said.
They said
I guess
what?
I don't know that
Oh,
toys
like
were
toys
being
and
more.
dolls, like Barbies and
Oh,
stuff like
okay.
that, I think is what they meant.
Cuz I wonder how media it's cuz I feel at least the media I've seen that seems like it's getting better. The
It
media
does
I
seem like it's
consume.
getting better and not worse. But because this was written in 2014.
Oh, okay.
So, like, I,
But
I
there is
guess I could.
still like pageants and
Oh,
stuff that
child, don't
focus on
even
that
start
and
talking about pageants. Oh,
well,
that's
yeah, child
disgusting.
pageants are awful. But also,
Yeah.
I was thinking just like even like cheerleaders, I feel like they are
Yeah.
sexualized in football and they
Oh, yeah.
shouldn't be either. Obviously, that's
Right. Because they're doing a sport.
weird. Hmm?
Like,
Oh,
why do you,
cheerleading. Yeah.
right? Like, why would you sexualize someone who's just trying to do a sport?
Yeah,
And I
it's
mean, like, at
and
least
maybe
with
that's
like
getting better
NFL
too,
and
but
like with things like the NFL and the NBA, like those organizations sexualize the cheerleaders. But like, I mean, yeah, there is also an inherent sexualization with that too, which is weird
yeah, but I
to
do think
me.
it's more the organization. Like it doesn't have to be
Right,
because it's not. It's truthfully it's not. It's just that we have constructed it to be that way, but it's not a
right,
sexual sport at all. Obviously, it's a
right.
sport.
And like they'll say, oh, the outfits they wear, but like wearing an outfit isn't inherently sexual unless it's like in a certain
And I also
context.
and I don't
Like
think
I
they have
don't
a
think any
choice.
clothes are inherently sexual.
No, they're not. But I also don't think they have a choice to wear the outfits. I think
Right. Oh
doesn't
yeah, no,
the
the
companies tell
organizations make
them
them
to?
wear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not even their
Oh
choice.
yeah.
So it's not like they are
Oh yeah,
making
no,
it
I'm not blaming
sexual.
them at all. I'm not
No,
blaming the
no, I know,
cheerleaders.
I know, I know. But I'm just saying that it's definitely like a it's not their like if people are going to use the argument on look what they wear, like okay, they're not choosing to wear that though. But obviously, yes, clothes should not be sexualized no matter what. Like a human
Right.
body is not a sexual thing. It's
Yeah.
just a human body.
Right. Right. Human body should not be sexualized. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. that people do all the time. Like going to just go to a nude beach, and like, even I was gonna say in Europe, but even like they have some in America. I've been to a nude beach, and
Yeah.
like it's not inherently a sexual thing.
Well, obvious.
You know?
Yeah. No. Why would like
Like, you're
that'd
not
be?
there to get laid unless you're like
Yeah.
just an idiot.
Because I'm
But
pretty sure sex at nude beaches is also illegal still. Because that would be
oh
public
yeah,
indecency.
right. Oh yeah, no, you can't have
But
sex on a nude beach if there's other people
yeah.
there. Now, if you're there at night and no one else is there, then that's a different story. But
Well, I guess that's.
I mean, it's not legal still, but you
Yeah.
can get
That's your. Yeah. That's your choice. No,
right,
I'm not gonna tell you what to do. One way or the other. That's your choice. We don't
right.
encourage illegal acts here.
Yes, we do not endorse illegal activity at the KSSP podcast. All right. So,
Do you want to know what I forgot to bring up in yesterday
oh what?
or Monday's episode though?
Oh what?
Conversion therapy
Yeah. Oh, we can talk about that in another
sometime.
episode too. We'll definitely have to
Because you
talk
know
about
how
that.
they're talking about how grooming is indoctrination. Well, what the hell are
Yeah.
conversion therapy then? If that is not, that
Yeah,
is
and then
literally
they have
straight
that,
up
like,
indoctrination.
and now they have like the trans version of conversion therapy too.
What?
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to send you that TikTok. I sent it to my mom, but
Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll
No,
have
they're
to talk
like,
about that sometime too.
yeah. I'll send you that TikTok that I
Okay.
saw. All right.
Those people.
And then we're gonna talk a little bit about the Kinsey scale. Um. Yeah. Oh, before we talk about that though, I did want to bring up, since we're on this topic. So sexuality isn't inherently a sexual concept, because you wouldn't consider a kiss between a man and a woman to be inherently sexual. And the same logic should apply to any pair of people exchanging the same kind of kiss. Like, I'm not talking
Yes.
about make out, I'm just talking about like a little peck.
Well, yeah.
And unfortunately, though, this is as a way to demonize the LGBTQ community. Non heteronormative relationships are seen as inherently sexual by a lot of people. But the truth is, sexual orientation can be as simple as just having a crush on somebody. Like, it's not an
Yes.
inherently sexual thing to be outside of the heteronormative um, sphere, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm hoping we're kind of educating everyone on here today is that
Yeah.
sexuality isn't sexual.
Oh,
It is not an inherently sexual thing. Especially because, as we looked at with that first diagram, sexuality is an umbrella.
my light died on me.
Oh,
That's okay, though.
yeah.
But yeah. All right. So this is the Kinsey scale. So Dr. Alfred Kinsey developed, and then these other people too, Myrtle Palmery and Clyde Martin. They developed the heterosexual homosexual rating scale, more commonly known as the Kinsey scale. First published in Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, the scale accounted for research findings that show people did not fit into exclusive heterosexual or homosexual categories. And you can actually take the test too. I mean, we could take the test if we wanted to. But yeah. So there's
Yeah.
basically
Is it
these.
on the website?
Let me see. I can find it though real easy. Yeah, I found a
We
test.
could we could take it. We'll first read about it, but
Oh yeah, for
or do you
sure.
want to do the test first, or should we read
We can
about it
read about it
first?
first.
Okay, yeah, let's read about it first.
So, the team interviewed thousands of people about their sexual histories. Research showed that sexual behavior, thoughts, and feelings towards the same or opposite sex were not always consistent across time. Instead of assigning people to three categories, heterosexual, bisexual, and homosexual, the team used a 7-point scale. It ranges from 0 to 6 with an additional category of X. So there's exclusively heterosexual, predominantly heterosexual, only incidentally homosexual, predominantly heterosexual, but more than incidentally homosexual, equally hetero and homosexual, predominantly homosexual but more than incidentally heterosexual, predominantly homosexual, only incidentally heterosexual, and exclusively homosexual. So here, I can open this twice here. So we can both, well, actually, yeah. Well, we'll just go one at a time.
Oh,
So, all
yeah,
right.
that works.
So you
Because there's
can
only
go
7
first.
questions. Oh,
Yeah.
I gotta go first?
You want me to go first? I can go first.
It doesn't matter. I don't care. You can go
I'll go,
first.
I'll go first. All right. To whom are you attracted? Let's see. I'm going to say both men and women. Who have you had sex with? Both men and women. Who have you had sexual fantasies about? Well, recently it's been mostly same-sex people. Even though I'm in a hetero relationship, we won't worry about that.
Yeah.
Who do you form strong emotional bonds? Mostly people of the opposite sex, I would say.
Do you think when they're talking emotional bonds, that means friendships too, though? Or is it strictly relationship, do you think?
That's a good
I'm just
question.
wondering. Because, like, if
Yeah, I
for
mean, I guess I
me,
don't
that
know.
answer would be different, I would say.
Yeah,
Because, like, obviously most of my friends have been female. So then I would say
yeah,
females. But I would say, like, romantic relationship is probably men
right.
for me.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
some.
for me it would be the same either way. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Yeah.
because I'm mostly friends with, like, I have more male friends than female friends, I'll say.
Oh, okay.
Who do you feel most comfortable socializing with? I say people, mostly people of the opposite sex. I just get nervous around girls. They're so pretty. Uh, the idea of having sex with someone of the opposite sex from mine is desirable. Again, desirable. Let's see where they put me. Oh, look at me. I'm right in the middle.
Look at that.
I am bisexual. Confirmed. All right. Now let's reload the test. Oh, is it? It's not going to let me retake it? Oh, take
Oh,
this
take the
test again.
test. Yeah.
I didn't see that button. Okay. So, to whom are you attracted?
I
Can you
would
read these?
say, yeah,
Okay.
mostly people of the same sex as mine.
Okay. Then who have you had sex with?
Only people of the same sex as mine.
Oh, whoops, wrong one. There we go. And then who have you had sexual fantasies about?
Mm, we'll do mostly people of the same sex as mine.
Okay. And then who do you form strong emotional bonds? Yeah, that was the tough question. I would say I would just go with the romantic because I think it's more about the sexuality.
I don't. Well, I'm just gonna go with mostly people of the opposite sex from mine. For because it's I don't know. Emotional to me is more
It
friendships.
could be. I mean, yeah, because it can mean friendships too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The test should be more clear about that.
Yeah, if they yeah, they should. And I guess maybe we could have looked. I guess if you go back to the Kinsey scale, does it bring up the questions at all and give like a like to the
I
definition?
don't
Does
think
it
so.
mention the questions anywhere?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, I didn't know if it gave more of a definitive, like a more in-depth explanation of what the because usually they sometimes will. Like obviously they probably shortened
Yeah.
it for this little quiz just to make it easy, but that
Yeah.
makes it harder. I feel because
Right.
I'm someone who likes to know more. But anyways, so most comfortable socializing with is gonna be mostly people opposite sex.
All right. The idea of having sex with someone of the opposite sex from mine is
Um, I mean, definitely not desirable, but not disgusting. But I don't
right.
think negative. I mean, maybe tolerable, I guess. We'll go
Okay.
with tolerable.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. And then what about the same sex?
Desirable.
Let's see. You are homosexual, incidental, heterosexual tendencies.
Okay.
Yep.
That that works.
Yeah. All right.
Interesting.
I like these colors. The
And
rainbow ombre.
you're only half rainbow, so
Oh, rude.
my head isn't rainbow apparently though. Oh, even the last one's head isn't rainbow either. I
Yeah.
would have assumed the whole body would be rainbow at the end, but interesting.
Yeah. I think
Oh,
that's
I
a
guess they're
typo,
both pink
though.
though. Like the heads are
Yeah.
both pink.
Yeah, instead of blue and dark.
Yeah,
All
interesting.
right. Yes. And then this is a PBS article. There is no gay gene. There is no straight gene. Sexuality is just complex. Study confirms.
From 2019, I believe. Or right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just
August
wanted to make sure it's
2019.
semi-recent.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's no single gene responsible for a person being gay or lesbian. That's the first thing you need to know about the largest genetic investigation of sexuality ever, which was published Thursday in Science. The study of nearly 500,000 people closes the door on the debate around the existence of a so-called gay gene. It instead, that's a weird way to phrase that. The report finds that human DNA cannot predict who is gay or heterosexual. Sexuality cannot be pinned down by biology, psychology, or life experiences, the study shows, because human sexual attraction is decided by all these factors. This is not a first study exploring the genetics of same sex behavior, but previous studies were small and underpowered. Andrea Gana, the study's co author and genetics research fellow at the Broad Institute and Mass General Hospital, said in a press briefing on Wednesday, just to give you a sense of the scale of our data, this is approximately 100 times bigger than any previous study on this topic. So, okay, before I read the rest of this article, like, I guess I kind of worry about this because I feel like there are people who would take this study out of context and say that being gay is a choice because it's not genetic.
But it is genetic. It's just not one gene, is what the
Oh,
study
okay. They are
says.
going to talk about that
Yes,
then.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, but I see the concern for sure. I
Oh,
mean,
oh, and
either
then
way, they can take out the first sentence from this and say, oh,
okay,
that
it's
means
not.
it's a choice. So no matter what, they're going to change the facts to fit their narrative, regardless of if it were to say that or not, anyways.
Yeah.
So we can't prevent people from doing that because people like
Right.
to twist things to fit their narrative. But that's why we aren't doing that. We're going to show the whole
Right.
story.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So it's basically they're just saying there's not a single like gay gene,
Yes.
like, but there are genetic factors that. Okay. I see. So the study shows that genes play a small and limited role in determining sexuality. Genetic heritability, all the information stored in our genes and passed between generations, can only explain 8 to 25% of why people have same-sex relations based on the study's results. 8 to 25%. How do they measure that?
That I don't know.
That's okay. Interesting.
Maybe because it's,
They
well,
probably have a bunch of factors that they
yeah.
have
It
like
probably depends on how many genes that they found they
yeah.
believe affect it, and then had to compare that with the other factors, which I don't remember. Oh, psychology and life experiences as well.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
all three of those factors.
Yeah,
So I
that
guess
okay.
psychology and life experiences must make up the rest, I would assume, based off of that
Oh,
statement.
because it's
But
decided by all of these factors. Okay.
yeah, so it's not, yep. So either way, their argument it's a
Yeah.
choice would still
Which
be
is how
irrelevant because
genetics
of the
yeah.
genetics. Like the
Which is how
genetics.
genetics work in general anyways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because like that's how any kind of genetics works. Where like so like if you have gene for well not any genetic, but like you know, let's say schizophrenia. Like
Then
if
environment is
you
gonna matter.
like if you grow up in a good environment and like you know like you keep your mental health in check, like you keep yourself mentally healthy to begin with, like you're going to be less likely to develop schizophrenia.
Yes. Or and I guess
For
at that point, do we even call it developing schizophrenia if they technically have the genetic factor, or do we just call it showing the traits of schizophrenia?
Yeah, I
That
guess
I
yeah,
guess I
showing
don't know.
traits of schizophrenia maybe would be a better way to put it.
But we don't diagnose people who have the genetic factor as having and
Right,
schizophrenia because
unless
we
you're
don't
showing
know
something.
until they show the symptoms, I guess, too. Sometimes, like you may
Exactly.
never know until you're put into
Right,
a
unless you do like a
environment.
genetic test maybe.
Yeah, yeah. But until you're thrown into an environment or life
Right.
experience that would trigger those
Right.
genetics or
Or
however it
thing
works. But
I know one another one is like psychopathy is
oh,
another one that's like that. Where like you if you grow up in a good home and you have good resources and you're able to stimulate your brain properly when you're young and all that good stuff, like you are probably not going to develop the antisocial or the psychopathy even if you have the genetic makeup
and that makes
that would
sense.
predispose you to it. Yeah. So, yeah, moreover, the researchers found that sexuality is polygenic, meaning hundreds or even thousands of genes make tiny contributions to the trait. The pattern is similar to other heritable but complex characteristics like height or proclivity towards trying new things. Things like red green color blindness, freckles, and dimples can be traced back to single genes, but polygenic traits can be strongly influenced by the environment, meaning there's no clear winner in this nature versus nurture debate. It's worth keeping in mind that this study only covers some types of sexuality: gay, lesbian, and cis straight. I don't. I don't. It's okay. Oh,
Well,
okay.
cis just
I
means the
see. I see.
same, I think,
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
it?
no. Yeah, cis means yeah, like cisgendered straight people. Okay. I was like, yeah, I was just thinking like cis isn't a sexuality, but no, no, that makes sense.
But what does the prefix cis mean again? Doesn't it just mean the
It means same, but like
or
yeah,
no, doesn't it mean
it just
opposite? Because what does this mean?
well, cis means same because it just means you identify with the same gender that typically aligns with your biological sex.
Oh, okay, but it's used in other things, obviously. Like
Yeah, but
it's
it
not
means same
specific
though.
to.
At least
Yeah,
that's what
okay.
it said in that video we watched. That's what they were saying.
No, cis means okay.
It means same, yeah.
So like cis genes would be a
Like the
gene
same.
that was the same as it was in the beginning.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. That's why I always struggled with
Yes.
prefixes in nursing school because
Mhm.
I was like, they're just, I feel like it's hard to put a prefix. I mean, obviously, there's some that make sense. Like, there's one for, like, one that means inflammation, I think, if I remember. I don't remember what it is,
Yeah.
but if a word has that similarity, then that's what. So some of them make sense, but some of them I feel like are hard to extract meaning from because it can
Yeah.
be similar, but also then be a little different still because it's its own thing, But
Yeah. Okay, but it says it doesn't offer many insights into gender identity. In other words, the team only looked at LGB within the acronym LGBTQIA+. Of course, ethical concerns arise with any attempt to use biology to explain complex human behavior like sexuality. People like Michael Bailey, a psychologist at Northwestern who conducted much of the early research into heritability of sexuality, warned against taking this new genetic study or any research on sexual behavior out of context. Yeah, we were just talking about that. He added that there's no evidence that things like conversion therapy work. True. Obviously, there are environmental causes of sexual orientation. We knew that before the study, said Bailey, citing the well defined role that life experiences play into sexual development. But that doesn't mean we know how to manipulate sexual orientation mentally. So, okay, I just want to see what's. Okay. So, the scientists set out to investigate a 20-year-old genetics debate in sexuality by combining the two huge collections of DNA profiles, the UK Biobank and 23andMe. Oh, okay, that's how they got so many users. So
Oh, I wonder, did 23andMe ask? It's
they probably just sold the data.
I
You
bet
probably
when
sign
you
a
signed up
contract,
for it, yeah. I
right?
bet it was in their terms of, or like like, you know how there's always a pop-up when you're signing
Mm-hmm.
up for thing that says read this thoroughly. It was
Oh
probably
yeah, and
in
then
there that
nobody
they
reads
could.
it.
Yep. So I just gave away my saliva.
Oh yeah.
That's okay. I don't think I have anything to hide with
Hopefully,
my
no one did
genetics
anything
though.
weird with it.
Well, yeah. Well, with the saliva.
Yeah,
Well, I hope not. That would be,
that'd be weird.
yeah. But even like, I don't really think. I don't know. I don't think I'm hiding any secrets in my genetics. So I guess, I mean, granted, that doesn't mean that I'm okay with people giving privacy away. But
Right.
it's just to me as like, I don't think my genetics tell like a secret story about me that if somebody has that information, they're going to be able to use that against me personally. But
Yes.
maybe they could, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So let's see. The study pulled information for 477,500 people across the U.S. Biobank. Oops, across the U.S. Biobank and 23andMe, who had taken a survey about various life behaviors, including whether they engaged in sexual experience with a person of the same sex at any point in their life. About 26,800 individuals, or 5% of the subjects, fit this description, which is similar to the percentage reported across society more generally. All the subjects consented to this research, including those pulled from 23andMe's archives. With
Okay.
genetic.
So
Oh,
they
yeah.
consented.
Okay. That's good. So, with this genetic trove available, the researchers conducted what's known as genome-wide association study, or GWAS, at the PBS News Hour. As the PBS News Hour has reported previously, a GWAS study scans the DNA of hundreds or thousands of individuals looking for common patterns that correspond with our health and our behaviors. Thinking of all humanity as consisting of 7 billion copies of the same book. All humans contain the same words or individual genes that make up how we think and how our organs function. But words in our respective genetic books or their code look slightly different. Some letters might be red, while some of yours are colored blue. They vary, which explains why we don't look exactly the same nor have the same health. This may sound counterintuitive, but those variations can also share similarities. The books that make up my family look similar to each other. In this example, they contain other shades of red. The same applies if two people have the same height or if we're both bald or both depressed. These genetic patterns look more similar among myriad types of groupings, and that's what GWAS hunts down. The technique that can be used to suss out why certain people and their particular genetic variations correlate with health conditions like autism, physical traits like curly hair, colorblindness, behaviors like handedness, or emotions like loneliness. And then what they found. They found, like with many human behaviors, sexuality doesn't have a strong genetic backing. Although, okay, I am going to say, like, I guess just that classifying sexuality as a human behavior, I feel like is a little inaccurate because I don't think the attraction is the behavior. I think it's more of just a trait, I guess. Like the behavior would be acting on the sexuality.
I guess.
But I mean,
But that makes it a behavior, doesn't it?
if you're acting on it, yes. But
Which
some
we
people
should,
don't
though.
act on their sexuality, though.
But we should be able to.
We should be able to, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree. But there. I mean, look at how many like conservative pundits and stuff end up being gay. you know,
Yeah. That's because they're repressing their
right? And they're oppressing, so they're not
natural.
act. I guess they do end up acting on the behavior though, because they get caught. But like, yeah, sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
aren't like trait and behavior kind of this like, I guess what would you define as a trait then, other than
the
sexuality?
trait would
Like
just be
green
like,
eyes?
yeah, like the attraction itself would be the trait.
Okay. But the okay.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But like, I guess I get why they classify it as a behavior and that's like a study. I just think that like colloquially, if you're thinking about it, the term just seems to imply that sexuality is based on the behavior, not the attraction.
Oh, I see what you're saying, I guess. So like that's saying that somebody who may have the genetic trait of being straight, but then maybe is making out with a man that so based off that behavior they're gay. Like, is that what you're kind of saying? Like, I
Yeah,
get what you're trying to say.
or
Um,
like I'm bisexual, but my behavior is that I'm in a relationship with a man.
oh,
But that
okay.
doesn't mean I still don't have the attraction to women, even though I'm not currently acting on that
Or I guess maybe
behavior.
something that would be better is those pundits who may have the trait and be homosexual are
Mhm.
kissing woman, making the sexuality be
Yeah,
heterosexual,
they're
even though
going
they're
against
not.
it. Yeah, or even like,
But you
you
could
know,
say that for either
beards.
side too, though.
Yeah,
Like, it's
even
not.
with beards, where like, you're repressing that you're gay, or you don't, you're not acknowledging that, and then you marry a woman because you want to try and be straight. And even though it doesn't work that way, people still do that.
Yes, yeah, I see what you're saying.
But yeah, anyways, not to discredit the study or
Well,
anything,
no,
you know,
yeah, it's
but
just
I just want to clarify that for
yeah.
people. But yeah, but okay, it says sexuality doesn't have a strong genetic backing. When the team looked for DNA patterns that had strong correlations, they found that no one gene could account for any more than 1% of people's sexuality. The strongest signals came from 5 random genes. 2 of those genes correlated with same sexuality in males, one of which is known to influence the sense of smell. Interesting.
That is interesting.
One gene cropped up for females, and 2 others showed solid patterns in both males and females. But their individual scores never passed this 1% mark, meaning they're all minor contributors to same sexual behavior. When the team looked more broadly across all the genomes, across the thousands of genes they screened for nearly 500,000 subjects, the gene similarities they found could only account for 8 to 25% of same sexual behavior. It is effectively impossible to predict an individual's sexual behavior from their genome. Genetics is less than half of the story for sexual behavior. So, why this study matters and what it can tell us. All right, last part. Here we go. Um, Humans have tried to understand human sexuality for centuries, and genetics researchers joined the fray in the early 1900s after a series of studies on twins suggested homosexuality ran in families. These kinds of studies have continued throughout the years, going as far as pinpointing a gene on the X chromosome, XQ28, as the culprit. As a teenager trying to understand myself and understand my sexuality, I looked at the internet for the gay gene and obviously came across XQ28. Um, yeah. And then, well, this dude, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name.
Oh yeah,
I cannot pronounce that.
no,
But he's a senior scientist at 23andMe and the study co-author, and he joked once led him to believe he inherited his gayness from his mother. Okay.
because it's an
Uh,
X gene.
yeah, I guess. His comments speak to the larger narrative about using biology to define complex behaviors like sexuality, when science is always evolving and takes time to find anything close to definitive. Those studies stumbled across a concrete pattern. Sexuality can run in families and thus must have a genetic component. But back then, the scientists had no way of comprehensively exploring this issue. Genome sequencing took decades to slowly mature into what it is today, and twins alone could not represent the genetic complexity of our species. We worried a lot about volunteer bias, says Bailey, whose research includes a widely publicized study on XQ28 and gay brothers from 2018. Those projects, known as linkage studies, were designed to find a single major gene that appeared to have a big effect on sexuality. And he said their work had always admitted that there is no single gay gene. The field has moved on to more to genome-wide association studies, says Sanders. Genome-wide association studies are better at mapping genes with small effects, which are at play here. This new study has a big limitation, one that has been inherent to the two major genomic studies for the last 2 decades. GWAS studies are too white. Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah,
There's many politically correct ways of saying this, but basically the study is mostly of Caucasian sample of European ancestry, so it does not include people from Latin America, Asia, and Africa. The second limitation is the way they lump together what they called non-heterosexuals. The researchers had members of the same-sex community review the study's design and language, and they admit that terminology and definitions for gay, lesbian, heterosexual do not reflect the full nature of sexuality continuum. They did attempt to examine some elements of this continuum by conducting GWAS analysis on 3 smaller DNA databases, wherein the participants had been surveyed using the Kinsey scale. The Kinsey scale is a somewhat infamous test for determining the strength of a person's feeling towards a member of the same and opposite sexes. In other words, it tries to judge if a person leans gay, straight, or bisexual. The team found genetics cannot explain people's scores on the Kinsey scale. We discovered the Kinsey scale is really an oversimplification of diversity of sexual behavior in humans. Oh, I did want to comment something on the Kinsey scale that I forgot to say.
Yeah.
I'll finish this first.
Okay.
So our study underscores an important role for the environment in shaping human sexual behavior, and perhaps more importantly, there's no single gay gene, but rather the contribution of many small genetic effects scattered across the genome. So I did want to mention about the Kinsey scale really quick, since I mentioned it here. I don't think the scale completely encompasses how fluid sexuality is, and your Kinsey score can change over time as well.
Yeah.
But it is an important discovery that introduced the world to the idea of fluidity and sexuality. So I did just want to mention that.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to move on to talking about conversion therapy. So, what is conversion therapy? It is any attempt to change a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. However, because the practice has come under increasing scrutiny, providers frequently change the terminology to avoid detection. So, and this is from GLAAD, by the way,
What is
GLAAD.
what is
It's
glad?
I don't know what it stands for, but
Oh, okay.
it's some kind of LGBTQ organization.
Okay.
So, all right, these are the examples of the terminology they use: sexual orientation change efforts, or SOCE; sexual attraction fluidity exploration and therapy, safety; eliminating, reducing, or decreasing frequency or intensity of unwanted same-sex attraction, SSA; reparative therapy; sexual reorientation efforts; ex-gay ministry; promoting healthy sexuality. Well, that's pretty. Some of these are pretty misleading.
Well, yeah, I think that's the point of them.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty terrible. Addressing sexual addictions and disorders. Sexuality counseling. Wow. Also very misleading. Encouraging relational and sexual wholeness. Healing sexual brokenness.
And aren't a lot of these like hidden out in the middle of nowhere too? Like
Oh,
to
yeah.
me, it's like they're hiding. Because if
Yes.
these actually worked and were effective, then why couldn't you open a clinic in town?
Right.
Then why do
Exactly.
you have to go hide out in the wilderness
Yeah.
to perform this?
Well,
Because
they
it's
might say,
awful.
oh, it's cheaper to buy land out there or something, but like,
No, they're just hiding their
they are hiding. Yeah.
actions. Because I've heard that I feel like I've heard of terrible anecdotes coming from people who have been in these places.
Yeah. Like, I cannot imagine.
No.
Yes, so proponents of conversion therapy often intentionally conflate the attempted altering of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression with treatment of an actual condition such as sexual addiction. Some claim they are helping their clients explore their sexual fluidity, or they emphasize their clients struggle with unwanted same sex attractions or gender confusion.
I have one more question before we get into the
Yeah.
harms. Who invented or founded conversion therapy? If we Google that,
Yeah.
I feel like I know who, but I just want to.
Let me see if there's a Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Richard von Krafft-Ebing, a German-Austrian psychiatrist and one of the founders of scientific sexology.
Okay.
So his work, 1886 work, Psychopathia Sexualis, included a discussion of methods for curing homosexuality through hypnosis.
If you
So this
go
has
to
been
the
going really far back.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. If you go to the history of conversion, like if you go to the article quick, I just want to see.
Oh yeah. What did you want to look at?
Um, Sigmund Freud. Gross.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
realize
think
he was part of
Freudian
it.
period.
Well, no, it says under the Europe Sigmund Freud is
Oh,
1.3.
oh, yeah, and he
Unfortunately,
probably did endorse it because he was kind of terrible.
yeah. But don't they
He was
still
a
teach
weirdo.
his ideology or thoughts though? Still, I swear we learned about him in nursing, like his
Well, we still use some of his.
lifespan
Um,
development is when we. I don't necessarily think it was indoctrinated into us. It was just a way, something that they taught us that this is a
yeah,
theory or a thought process that. But I didn't realize. Like, well, I don't know. I guess they could. I mean, not that it matters that he was not a good person, but I feel like that is important to a sense because
yeah,
it's important to understand who they were as people and what their beliefs were because that is going to affect the
right.
theories that they have.
Yes,
You
like
know,
he wrote. Yeah, like this says he wrote that changing homosexuality is only possible under unusually favorable conditions, observing that to convert a fully developed homosexual into a heterosexual does not offer much more prospect of success than the reverse. So he's basically saying, so success to Freud meant making heterosexual feeling possible, not eliminating homosexual feelings.
so he wanted everyone to be bisexual. Then is what
Right.
that sounds like, which
Yeah. I
is
mean, I'm down with that. Nah, I want
but
people
not
to live
forcing it.
their
Yeah,
lives.
not forcing it
Yeah.
like he wanted to. Or
But
I
if
guess I don't.
everyone was bisexual by choice, that would be pretty cool.
Yes, yes. I mean, that would just be. Then we could. I mean,
Then
yeah,
we could just abolish gender at that point.
yeah. I mean, we still could, but
We still could, yeah.
I don't know. I guess I thought, well, who? Okay, let's Google who runs most conversion camps today or therapy. Yeah, um,
Uh,
there's a bunch of ads.
lists. Yeah, well, a lot of ads. Um,
I can't believe it's not banned federally. That blows my
right,
mind.
right. Jurisdictions. Here's the map.
That's it.
Yeah,
Blue is banned. Wow, that is pathetic.
yeah, and no ban on conversion therapy for minors in the gray.
What?
Yeah,
Wow, that is pathetic.
yeah, it's pretty terrible.
I guess I was under the assumption that it was mostly religious institutions running conversion camps. Is there
I think
basis in that? I guess if we Google do religious institutions
I'm gonna say
run
are there secular conversion therapy camps?
okay.
I'll put it that way.
What's the
Um,
conversion therapy archives secular
where is that?
if you go up one more secular coalition for America?
Oh, this one. I think this is just about how it's harmful.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's not an
So they're
actual.
not
I
running
think they are
anything.
mostly religious, though.
I just don't like making that claim without having
Right. It would be nice to have the. Let's see if this tells us.
or even like statistics or something.
Yeah. Um.
Did that say Nazi?
Probably.
Nazi human experimentation 3.9.
Oh yeah.
Um,
So let's see. I mean, it probably used to be less religious in the past than it is now.
or is it that we used to be more religious in the
Or yeah,
past,
that's true. We probably were more religious in the past. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely true.
and now that we're less religious, now it's a I mean, it was a problem back then
We
too, but people might not have thought of it as a problem because there was more religion, and they thought that it was helping. Like it was, they thought that it was God's will that these camps were existing to help these poor homosexuals, even though that's inaccurate
I'm
and it's
trying.
inhumane, obviously.
Yes.
Because I've also heard of, I guess that talked about what they might do at some of them too, like the theories
Yeah.
and techniques.
And it might go over it in this article too. Maybe they'll say if it's related.
Lobotomy. Oh my god.
Oh yeah. No, crazy shit.
What is reparative therapy? I wonder.
Um, it's a synonym for conversion therapy generally. It refers to a specific kind of therapy. It refers to the postulate that same-sex attraction is a person's unconscious attempt to self-repair feelings of inferiority.
Oh, so it's a therapy. It's not like a physical thing. Like lobotomy is a physical
Right.
attempt.
Yeah.
What is that ex-gay minister thing? I wonder. It was up a little. I just am curious what that means.
Ex-gay, ex-trans ministry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's a form of conversion therapy. While others state that ex-gay organizations and conversion therapy are distinct methods of attempting to convert gay people to heterosexuality, the umbrella organization Exodus International in the U.S. ceased activities in 2013 of June, and three-member board issued a statement which repudiated its aims and apologized for harm their pursuit has caused to LGBT people. So ex-gay,
Oh.
ex-trans organizations often overlap and portray being trans as inherently sinful or against God's design, or pathologize gender variance as due to trauma, social contagion, and or gender ideology. So it's
It
specifically focused around religion.
Oh, it was a literal ministry. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought that was a technique. But I mean, I guess you could consider that a technique still. It's just it was a
yeah,
legitimate organization ministry. It wasn't just like lobotomy. I think. I guess when I'm thinking of techniques, I think of like putting like waterboarding, lobotomy. Like those are what
yeah,
I think of when I think of techniques, I guess. But
right. But some of them are just like
psycho or
psychological
yeah,
technique
psychological, yeah.
or pseudo psychological, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, let's see the harms of conversion therapy.
Okay.
So, San Francisco State University found that compared with LGBTQ young people who were not rejected or were only a little rejected by their parents and caregivers because of their gay or transgender identity, highly rejected LGBTQ young people were 8.4 times more likely to report having attempted suicide, 5.9 times more likely to report high levels of depression, 3.4 times more likely to use illegal drugs, 3.4 times more likely to be at high risk of HIV and STDs. So, yeah, basically the lesson is treat people with respect
Yeah.
and be supportive. So, statistics 698,000 LGBTQ adults aged 18 to 59 in the US have received conversion therapy, including about 350,000 LGBTQ adults who received treatment at adolescence. 20,000 LGBTQ youth aged 13 to 17 will receive conversion therapy from a licensed healthcare professional before they reach the age of 18 in the 41 states that currently do not ban the practice. Then 6,000 LGBTQ youth aged 13 to 17 who live in states that ban conversion therapy would have received such therapy from a licensed healthcare professional before age 18 if their state had not banned the practice. And then 57,000 youth aged 13 to 17 across all states will receive conversion therapy from a religious or spiritual advisor before they reach the age of 18. So yeah, it does seem to be primarily religious, but not, I guess, not completely.
Here, can I send you this article quick? And we can just
Oh yeah,
briefly look. It just talks about like like more in depth of the history of it, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know. I tried to briefly skim it, but I didn't get
Okay,
too
yeah,
far in it.
we can skim it.
Yeah.
We don't have to read the whole thing, but
No, no.
yeah, we can skim it a little bit.
Because I feel like History Channel is a good source, right? I hope we can
Yeah,
trust them.
unless we're talking about aliens, but other than
I
that, they're a good source. They got
mean,
some.
aliens could be real, but I
Yeah,
guess I don't know how they talk about
they're just
aliens,
not.
but
The evidence isn't there, but hey,
yeah.
we'll just talk about it anyways. But no, yeah, History Channel for the most part is a good source though when they're not
I,
talking about that.
So we learned about that German psychiatrist. I think
Yeah.
that's who you mentioned. So it was a
Yes, I think
psychiatrist,
so.
I guess, that initially came up with
Yes.
it. And I don't know his religious affiliation, but if he wasn't a religious leader, then we can't claim that religion founded it. But
Yeah. Let's see.
they're sinful, though. I feel like that's
Yeah.
a word that's used more so with religion
Yes.
than secular.
Right.
I mean, not again.
Homosexual.
I'm not trying to blame, and I just want to understand it, and
I just
not
want to
in
know
a
the numbers. I
huh.
just want to know the numbers of how many of these are religious.
Yes, because I feel like it happens mostly in religion because religion is the people who are pushing that gay is a sin.
Right.
So it would
Exactly.
be weird to me that there were secular people who ran conversion camps. I'm not saying it
Right.
doesn't happen. I'm just saying
Well,
it would be
because
weird to me.
there are secular people who still believe that, being gay is a mental disorder. So, because it
True.
did
Yeah,
used
I
to be in
guess
the
that's true
DSM back
too.
in the day.
Like I guess this guy was a psychiatrist, so he probably believed it was a mental disorder. And I mean he believed it was a sin too. I would assume. I
Well,
guess I
yeah,
don't know if he was religious,
they
but
considered deviant, sinful, and even criminal for
oh,
centuries.
I guess I think I knew abuse because it's still criminal in some countries, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it
Yeah,
is. You can
which
be like
is
executed in some countries for
that
that.
is how is
It's,
that not a human rights violation?
like they were just talking about with FIFA, in Qatar, like the World Cup.
Someone was executed?
No, but they were saying like if you're gonna come watch the game, like you can't be gay and you can't do
What?
anything gay, like hold hands with your boyfriend or whatever, and like all
That's
that stuff, like just to watch the World Cup. And, people come from all over the world to watch the World Cup.
yeah.
So
If you don't want those types of people there, then don't hold the World Cup. What?
right, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, there was. I'm pretty sure they paid FIFA off
Oh, of course. Money.
as a bribe. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, if I remember correctly. So let's see. This theory led to testicle
What?
transplantation experiments in the 1920s, during which gay men were castrated, then given heterosexual testicles. What the fuck?
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that was Eugene Steinach, a
I
pioneering
wonder what
endocrinologist.
are those people called? Eunuchs? I mean, I doubt there's
Oh
a
yeah,
resemblance between Eugene and eunuchs, but just the EUN,
but yeah,
EUG.
but eunuchs is related though. I think I don't know if it's directly related to this, but like I know they're castrated men, aren't they?
I
Didn't
think
we
so.
discuss that?
Yeah. Because
But
then
yeah,
I was like, they're like monks, but then I was like, wait, but monks aren't castrated though, because I don't think monks are. But eunuchs wear like or like I think they're quiet like monks,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
think they're quiet for obviously monks. I think choose. I don't think
mhm,
eunuchs get a choice. I don't.
yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't know much about eunuchs
I
and
don't know the
monks, but
history.
yeah.
But yeah, he believed homosexuality was rooted in a man's testicles. So,
How?
and then others theorized homosexuality was a psychological disorder instead. Sigmund Freud hypothesized that humans are born innately bisexual, and that homosexual people became gay because of their conditioning. What about straight people, though?
that apparently that's not a problem in his eyes. But I guess he. What does he say next? It's not a
It says, but
disease.
Freud emphasized that homosexuality was not a disease per se. Some of his colleagues didn't agree. They began to use new psychiatric interventions in an
Uh,
attempt to cure gay people. And then, of course, there was electroconvulsive
ugh.
therapy. Others were subject to even more extreme techniques like lobotomies.
Oh yeah, there's shock, which I guess is the
Yeah.
can be part of ECT.
See, but though Heath contended he was able to actually turn gay men straight, his work has since been challenged and criticized for its methodology.
Well, yeah, I don't think it was very ethical.
Oh, and then aversion therapy, which is founded on the premise that if LGBTQ people became disgusted by homosexuality, they would no longer experience same sex desire. So they were under medical supervision. They were given chemicals that made them vomit when they looked at photos of their lovers, for example. That's
What?
messed up. Others were given electrical shocks, sometimes to their genitals, while they looked at gay pornography or
Oh my
cross-dressed.
god.
Let's see. And then, yeah, in the 60s and 70s is when the vocal gay rights movement took to the streets to demand equality. And the profession began to turn its back on the concept that people could be converted to heterosexuality. And then in 1973, the APA removed homosexuality from the DSM. Its influential manual of psychiatric disorders, and medical professionals began to distance themselves from techniques they had once embraced. And then that wasn't the end of attempts to turn gay people straight. Self-proclaimed experts in faith-based groups took over the practice themselves. They called their techniques conversion or reparative therapy, or advertised themselves as ex-gay ministries.
Hmm.
Their methods varied, and they included everything from talk therapy to exorcisms. Wow.
Exorcisms.
Yes, I guess it's just a demon, a gay
Oh
demon.
no. So it seems like it was medical in the beginning and then religion kind of took over once medical abandoned it, is kind of what
Yeah,
I'm getting from. I mean,
that's what it seems like from this
okay.
article. Yeah.
And I mean, I bet religion was always against it, but they didn't have to run these conversion camps because it was accepted as medicine at that time. But then once
Right.
the medicine rejected that idea, then
They took over. Yeah.
yeah, is what I'm understanding from this a little bit.
Yeah, that's what this is kind of making it sound like. Yeah.
Yeah.
So at these gay conversion camps and conferences, LGBTQ people were isolated from family and friends, hypnotized, told to pray until their homosexuality subsided, instructed to beat effigies of their parents, mocked, coached on proper gender roles, and told their sexuality was unnatural and sinful. So for the people who underwent conversion therapy, shame and pain were an undeniable part of the process. I read books and listened to audio tapes about how to have a corrective and healing relationship with Jesus Christ. Writes James Guay, a gay man who attempted weekly therapy and conversion seminars as a teen. These materials talked about how the gay lifestyle would create disease, depravity, and misery. I was convinced that doing what I was told would change my attractions, and confused about why these methods supposedly worked for others but not for me. Let's see.
Oh no. Did you read that for in some cases?
In some cases, people were psychologically and even sexually abused. Oh my God, that's awful. Others committed suicide after treatment. Meanwhile, evidence that any of the techniques were effective remained non existent. Oh my God. Okay. So, 13 states in the District of Columbia have laws that ban gay conversion therapy practices. Victims of family like Jonah or Jews offering new alternatives for healing brought lawsuits for fraud. On Exodus International, an umbrella group that connected various conversion therapy groups and gay ministry organizations, which Exodus International sounds extremely religious, by the way. I'm pretty sure they are. Closed down in 2013 after nearly 40 years of operation. And its president decided it's impossible to change someone's sexual orientation.
Took 40 years to understand that.
Right. Like, you didn't see that after the first, month that it wasn't working? Yes. Yeah. But for those who have been on the receiving end of the therapy and those who still face pressure to receive it, its after effects can linger long past any bill or executive order. So, okay. So, all right. These are. Oh, I'm not even going to read all these because there's
Yeah.
one. But I'll show the list here really
Yeah.
quick. I'll just leave it for people to read. Okay. List of U.S. organizations that have denounced conversion therapy. It's just a lot of, psychiatrists and physicians and all of that, and therapists.
Medicine.
Yes. And then, yeah, we looked at the map, but these are the states that have passed laws protecting the LGBTQ youth from conversion therapy in order. California, New Jersey, Illinois, Oregon, Vermont, Connecticut, Nevada, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Washington State, Maryland, Hawaii, New Hampshire, and Maryland. And then Washington, D.C. as well. And so Governor Cuomo signed an executive order that in New York State that protects youth from conversion therapy by prohibiting public and private healthcare insurers from covering the practice. Wait, that could be covered by insurance? Are you
Yep.
freaking kidding me? That's awful. I
I
did not
think
know that.
I want to say, how old is this article? I want to say
Um,
Biden passed an executive order saying that it cannot be covered by insurance anymore. I guess we can look that up
okay.
super quick, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he passed an executive order saying, like, but at first when I saw that order, thought that he had banned conversion therapy nationwide, but I think all
Which
it
he
did
should have
was
just done that.
ban, he should have, yes. But I think that what it was
Cool.
or maybe it only prevents
Okay.
federal funding
It
to
says my
conversion
order
therapy.
will use the full force of the federal government to prevent inhumane practices of conversion therapy. This is the first time the federal government is using a coordinated response against this dangerous, discredited practice. It protects sexual orientation and gender identification under civil rights law. Hold on, let me just. This
I
did
guess
Biden ban conversion therapy? Oh, yep, he banned conversion therapy. Yeah, he banned it.
he
That's what,
banned it, or
yeah, that's what this says. The executive order. Okay. Yeah, I think he just outright banned it.
I mean that's good as long as that's what that
Yeah.
means. And it's not like where he banned only the inhumane practices. So if does he consider
Right.
talk therapy inhumane? I guess I don't know what the bill says exactly, but there is
Yeah.
also I just looked in um 2019
Hmm.
they prohibited Medicare from funding conversion therapy. So it used to be like Medicare could fund. I think conversion therapy used to be federally funded,
Oh, wow.
which is insane.
Yeah. So, okay. It says how to speak about conversion therapy in the media. I do like this. Actually, maybe I should start practicing this better. So instead of saying banning conversion therapy, we say that the laws protect LGBTQ youth from conversion therapy.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and we'll go over this terminology in another thing.
Okay.
So, here we're going to go over that next. So, what are some types of gender identity? Gender is different from sex. Although genetic factors typically define a person's sex, gender refers to how they identify on the inside. Only the person themselves can determine what their gender identity is. So, yeah, we've talked about the difference between gender and sex.
Yeah.
Plenty. So, here are the different gender identities. Agender. A person who is agender does not identify with any particular gender, or they may have no gender at all. Other terms include neutral gender, null gender, genderless, and neutrois. Androgen. A person who identifies as androgen has a gender that is either both masculine and feminine or between masculine and feminine. Bigender. A person who identifies as bigender has two genders. People who are bigender often display cultural masculine and feminine roles. Butch. Women, especially lesbians, tend to use this term to describe the way they express masculinity or what society defines as masculinity. However, the LGBTQIA Resource Center states that butch can also be a gender identity in itself. Interesting. I didn't know that about the term.
Yeah. Because don't some people use it derogatorily too, though?
Some people
That
do
term.
use it in a
Yeah.
derogatory sense, yes.
But I mean, people use all
But it's
terms.
also just used in um, the lesbian community just as like a term because there's like butch, femme, and lipstick from what I understand. And
Okay.
maybe that info is outdated, but like that's what I heard in the
Yeah.
past.
Okay.
And that's just kind of like how you like would say like a twink or a bear, like in the gay community, you know?
Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. So cisgender. A cisgender person identifies with the sex that they are assigned at birth. For example, a cisgender woman is someone who still identifies with the sex female. In this case, a doctor assigned them at birth. So, gender expansive. This is defined as the umbrella term used for individuals who broaden their own culture's commonly held definitions of gender, including expectations for its expression, identity, roles, and other perceived gender norms. Those who are gender expansive include people who are transgender and people whose gender broadens the surrounding society's notion of what gender is. I would say, I mean, I'm not transgender, so I don't know if I can, but I kind of feel that.
Gender expansive.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
because I
That
do some
isn't
masculine.
transgender, though, is it?
No,
Like
I mean,
solely.
people who are transgender can be gender expansive.
Yeah. I think it, yeah. Anyone
Just
can
because,
be.
like, my goal in life is to be the breadwinner in the family, with my boyfriend and eventually husband at some point. But
Yeah.
like that's just how I grew up too, though, with my mom as the breadwinner, and that's what I want to do. So like I would say that's kind of broadening the surrounding society's notion of what gender is.
Yeah.
For example, because women are typically the ones who stay at home. Like I would want, the goal is for him to be a stay-at-home dad or whatever.
Yeah. As long as he wants that,
And
then yeah,
oh
definitely.
yeah, he's definitely fine with that.
Yeah.
He's happy with that. And then gender fluid. The person who identifies as gender fluid has a gender identity and presentation that shifts between or shifts outside of society's expectations of gender. Gender outlaw. I like that.
That's me.
Right.
I do like
Mhm.
that one. Like the outlaw.
Yeah, outlaw. I love
Especially
it.
because I just skimmed it already, but you read it. But I agree with
Yeah.
it.
So a person who identifies as a gender outlaw refuses to allow society's definition of male or female to define them. Oh yeah, I definitely get down with that.
Yeah. Although I want to just, I mean, I want to
You're
get
just
rid of gender, not in a um oppressive way, but just in a freeing
in
way.
a
Because
liberating way.
yes, liberating way. Because I just don't like
Yeah.
labels because I feel like labels can be used as a tactic to hurt people. But I understand that some labels help people understand themselves. So I
Right.
guess I wouldn't say let's get rid of all labels to where people can't label themselves. It's more so let's get rid of labels have like
Let's get rid of the
labels
need for
having
labels.
yes the need and label and some labels feeling superior over others,
Right.
how
Yeah,
like males feel superior over a female, but
right.
that's not there's no truth to that at all. I mean,
Right.
yes, in the patriarchy society, but that's why we need to get rid
That's
of
just
that
power,
too.
though.
But
That's not superiority. That's just more
yeah, yeah.
power.
But I think some people equate superiority with power though too,
That's
even though
true,
there's
too.
no basis, I guess. But
Right. That's just, yeah. I just feel like I don't even want to say capitalism. I mean, that's a part of it. But that can exist in any kind of society, any
a
economic
power
system.
structure or dynamic
Yeah,
or
like a power structure leading to feelings of superiority.
oh yeah, because even in oligarchies, obviously the
Yeah.
I think is that or monarchy maybe I don't know the difference between those two.
Oligarchy is like a few people run it, and
Like a
monarchy is
queen
like
and
one person
king.
runs it.
So
So
either of those can
monarchy
have a
would be
king
like
and
with the
queen.
queen and king, but an oligarchy would be more like a few groups of people lead it. Maybe that's a better way to put it. So like I'm trying to think.
How is
So
that different
you
than
can
like
almost
a?
consider an oligarchy like what we have in America, where
Yeah,
like
that's what
there's
I
a
was just
few
gonna say.
corporations. Yeah, and some people do call it an
Because
oligarchy.
like we have a president and then the Congress and the like, because that's three
Oh, I was just gonna say because of
groups.
the corporations that run everything. Like I mean, the government does technically run stuff, but like they're very heavily influenced by very few select people who have money.
Yeah, but the government is the one who can write the laws, I guess is what
Right.
it is. Like the corporations can influence the laws, but they cannot. I mean,
Right.
and they can write a law, draft a law, but they
Well, they can
cannot
write the
pass a
laws
law.
when Trump puts them in his cabinet.
But Congress still has to vote on it, I guess is my thing.
Yeah.
So the government still holds the ultimate power, but they are influenced extremely
Right.
by the corporations. I will
Yeah.
say
The
that.
super
So I
wealthy.
guess in that sense, corporations hold power, but it's still, but even then, it's still,
It's like an indirect power.
yeah. And even then, it's like four branches that control everything,
Yeah.
then, which is still an oligarchy, I guess, under that definition.
Yeah.
Because I guess what else do people call? Oh, I guess is democracy a different term? Like, is that
Well,
comparatively
um,
to
well,
like
democracy is like you can have a democracy in like
in an
a
oligarchy?
not well, they call it something else. Like I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
what they officially call America, like what the government calls itself. There's a term they use. Oh, it's been so long since I've been to school.
Well, don't they call us a democratic republic or something though too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
We're
we
called the
like
Democratic Republic. Yeah.
vote for our representatives, but we don't vote on legislation.
Right. Which I think we should vote on a lot of, not all of it. I understand that would be like very time consuming,
Yeah.
but like there's a lot more legislation we should vote on
Well,
than.
and in the digital age, there is no excuse that they cannot create a system that can be free from hackers. I'm not going to say it's easy. I'm not going to make the claim that it's easy, but they can
Yeah.
do it if they dedicate their time to
Right.
it.
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
free
yeah.
from outside hackers. And it may have to
Yeah.
be its own like phone where like nobody can get into the code and you get it's
Right.
like a phone that you only use to vote, or like I don't know, a device that you only use
Or
to
even if
vote.
they do it by like thumbprint.
Yeah, something. There has to be a way that they can figure it out to where anybody could, like, if they wanted to pass the legislation tomorrow, then we would have a device at our homes that we could vote somehow,
Yeah.
where we would have to verify our identity as American,
Hmm.
I guess, citizens, because that is what, even though yeah, although I think
Hmm.
anybody who is in America should have fast access to become a citizen, because that's just going to be the
Oh, yeah.
easiest to prevent corporations from using illegal labor. I guess because that's what they call it, is illegal labor. But
Yeah.
even if you don't consider it illegal labor, because I guess it's just labor,
It's
but
still
it's still, they're
exploitative
taking,
labor.
yes, exploitative labor. Although they do that to American citizens too,
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's still exploitative, but
it's
it's a lot
worse
more
to,
exploitative
yes.
when
So
you're
if
not
we
here.
want to get rid of these immigrants stealing our jobs, well then make them, well I guess they consider legal people immigrants though, and then they still say they're stealing our jobs, which
Yeah.
that's just wrong in general. But
Right.
if you're scared of the illegal immigrants taking our
I mean,
job, then make them legal immigrants. Make
right.
that the
And
easiest
then,
thing for them to do.
when you look at, what kinds of jobs, people, undocumented citizens have, like, they're most of the time they're jobs that, like American citizens don't want.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like, they work hard, like,
Oh
especially
yeah,
on like the agricultural stuff with a lot of that. Like, yes,
yeah,
that is a lot of hard work that most people do not want to do. And I
yes.
give mad respect for them for doing it. So, all right, we got a little off topic, but that's okay. Let's
It's
talk
all
about
related
genderqueer. It is.
a little bit, but yes,
Someone.
back to genderqueer.
So, a genderqueer person identifies. So, a person who identifies as genderqueer has a gender identity or expression that is not the same as society's expectation if they're assigned sex or assumed gender. Genderqueer can also refer to a person who identifies outside of how society defines gender, or someone who identifies with a combination of genders. I feel like a lot of these are similar,
Yeah,
but like that. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah, I
Just,
mean it's whatever
I
people
don't
feel
understand the
comfortable
distinction.
identifying as, I guess.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's like there's just like small distinct differences or if it's a matter of choice which label you use because
Yeah.
I am not as educated in the trans community as I am in like, the gay community, I guess. But yeah,
But this is
I'm
just
just trying
talking
to
about gender
understand.
identity, right? It's not talking about
Right.
only trans. So,
Oh yeah, no, these are all kinds of gender
yeah.
identities. So masculine of center. A person who uses this term is usually a lesbian or a trans person who leans more towards masculine performances and experiences of gender. Interesting. Non binary. They do not experience gender within the gender binary. People who are non binary may also experience overlap with different gender expressions, such as being gender non-conforming. Omnigender. A person who identifies as omnigender experiences and possesses all genders. Polygender and pangender. People who identify as poly or pangender experience and display parts of multiple genders. Transgender. This is an umbrella term that encompasses all people who experience and identify with a different gender than that which is assigned sex at birth would suggest. Although most people think of trans men and trans women when hearing the word transgender, this term also encompasses people who identify as a gender other than man or woman, including non binary and gender fluid. So, trans. Trans is a more inclusive term that covers those who identify as non binary and those who are genderless, according to the LGBTQIA Resource Center. And then last one is two spirit. It's an umbrella term that encompasses different sexualities and genders in the indigenous Native American communities. There are many different definitions of two spirit, and indigenous Native American people may or may not use this term to describe their experiences and feelings of masculinity and femininity. This is a cultural term that is reserved for those who identify as indigenous Native American. So, yeah, those are
Okay.
different types of gender expression. And then we just got a couple more articles here. This one is from Planned Parenthood, and it's about coming out. So, coming out article from Planned Parenthood. Um, Coming out could be exciting, overwhelming, and sometimes scary. It's different for everyone, and you're the only one who can decide when the time is right. So, what is coming out? Coming out is understanding your own sexual orientation or gender identity and then deciding to share it with some or all of the people in your life. Coming out is different for everyone, and there are lots of ways to do it. Some LGBTQ people choose to come out. Choose to come out only to themselves and not to anyone else. Only you can know what's best for your life right now. Should I come out? Whoa. Coming out is a decision that LGBTQ people have to face all the time with every new person they meet. So it's something that you'll probably do over and over again throughout your life. The way you approach and experience coming out might change depending on where you are and who you're with. Coming out is a very personal decision. You and only you get to decide if, when, and how you do it. Coming out can be a really important step, and people should only come out if and when they're ready and feel safe doing so. It's never okay to pressure someone into coming out or to out an LGBTQ person without their permission. You might want to start by talking with other people who are LGBTQ. Sometimes it's also helpful to talk with adults you trust, like counselor, social worker, teacher, support a family member, to help you decide when you want to come out and who to come out to. For all people, and young people especially, gender and sexuality can change and evolve over time. It might take you a while to fully understand your own sexual orientation and gender identity, and these things can shift as you get older. Sharing a big part of who you are as a person during the time that you're trying to figure it all out can be complicated. All right, for a lot of people, coming out can be a great experience, especially if they have support from their family, friends, and communities. While it can make your relationships feel better and make you feel great, it can also feel scary depending on who you're coming out to and what you think their reaction will be. And unfortunately, in some places, there's a lot of homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia. Fear and hatred of people who are LGBTQ. If you think coming out might cause you harm, physical, emotional, or financial, you may decide to wait to come out until you have a plan to take care of yourself. All right. And how do I come out? Coming out is a process and it's different for everyone. There isn't one right way to do it, and you can come out on your own terms in whatever way feels best to you. Who should I come out to? Deciding who to tell can be an important decision. Think about the people you're closest to and who would love and accept you no matter what. Those people can help support you as you come out to others in your life. If you live with or depend on your parents for financial support and you think coming out will get kicked out of the house or put you in an unsafe situation, you might consider waiting to tell them until you're more independent. You don't have to tell everyone at the same time. It's a process and it doesn't need to happen all at once. While you might be super excited to share your sexual orientation or gender identity with the world, sometimes it's best to deal with each situation and relationship separately and thoughtfully. Remember that it can be difficult to predict how someone will react when you come out, so try to be prepared for any reaction you might get, both positive and negative, and no matter what, you're not alone. The best way to come out. There is no right way to come out. The way you come out has only one rule. It should feel right to you. If you think someone that you're coming out to might have a negative response, it's a good idea to have a plan for how you'll deal with it. Set up some support ahead of time from a person who knows and loves you. You might decide to have an in-person conversation with the person or people you want to come out to, or you might decide that it's better to write an email or letter. If you're talking face-to-face, pick a time and place that makes you and them feel relaxed without distractions. Writing a letter or email can be a good option if you're worried about saying things the right way, if you want to give the person time to think through their response, or if you don't feel comfortable talking in person. Don't worry if the person you come out to doesn't react the way you hoped right away. Sometimes it takes a while for people to adjust. What you've told them might be surprising or unexpected for them. They might just need time to process before they give you their support. And then this one, do I need to come out to my doctor? Now, this is something that isn't talked about as much, I don't think, when we talk about coming out. But one of the best ways you can get the best health care possible is to be open and honest with your doctor. Coming out is always a personal choice, but it can actually improve the care you get from your doctor. But do I have to come out to my doctor? Being as open and honest as possible with your doctor, nurse, or counselor about your sexual orientation, gender identity, and sexual behaviors can help them know what's needed to give you the best care possible. If you're under 18 and are concerned about privacy, it's okay to ask your doctor about confidentiality before you share any information with them. The things that you and your doctor talk about during your visit will generally be completely private, unless there's a situation where you feel you may be in danger of hurting yourself, hurting others, or be hurt by someone else. So here's some general tips for being open with your doctor. Get referrals. Ask LGBTQ people in your area who they see. Planned Parenthood provides high-quality health services to all patients regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. Your local LGBTQ center probably has a list of LGBTQ-friendly places too. You can also check out the Gay and Lesbian Medical Association Provider Directory. Bring a friend. If you're feeling nervous about coming out to your doctor, talking about your sexual orientation or gender identity, bring along a trusted friend or support person. Ask ahead of time if your doctor has experience with LGBTQ patients. You can ask this on the phone before you give your information. Ask questions. Make a list of questions about your health, staying safe support services you want to ask ahead of time so you won't forget anything at your appointment. And I agree. Yes, coming out to your doctor, it can be hard, but if you trust your doctor, I agree. It does improve your health care. It does improve the way that
Yes.
you're treated. But I mean, if you're not comfortable, then that's fine. There's no shame in that. But if you are comfortable, it's definitely a good thing to do. And what I have to say about coming out. So it's a very individualized experience. As is mentioned, do not come out if it's going to interfere with your safety, and this does include the possibility of losing essential financial support. When you do choose to come out, be prepared for any kinds of questions you may anticipate from the other party. Not everyone is going to understand your identity, and that's okay. This doesn't mean you need to feel obligated to answer any questions you're asked, but anticipating such questions will prevent the conversation from taking unexpected turns. It's okay if the person you're coming out to needs time to process this new information. If they choose to support you, that's great. If they don't, it's better to have lost the relationship than it would be to maintain it under false pretenses. Because if someone isn't willing to support you for who you truly are, then they don't deserve to have you in their life to begin with. You are worth so much more than that. So I do want to show this page really quick. I'm not going to go over all of these, but this is plannedparenthood.org/learn/parents/identify. Or sorry, no, /identity. Oh my
Okay.
goodness. So plannedparenthood.org/learn/parents/identity. And you can see tips for different age groups: preschool, elementary school, middle, and high school. I'm going to go over the all ages page really quick. So these are tips for talking. When should I start talking with my kid about sex and relationships? Research tells us that kids and teens who have regular conversations with their parents and caregivers about sex and relationships are less likely to take risks with their sexual health and are more likely to be healthy and safe. So it's never too early and it's never too late to start talking with your kid about sex and relationships. As soon as kids start learning to talk, you can teach them the names of the parts of their body. As soon as they start being around other kids, you can teach them about respecting other people and talking about their feelings. I would also include specifically the concept of consent.
Yes.
These things lay the groundwork for healthy sexuality and relationships later on. So how do you keep the conversation age appropriate? It's all about what details you include. For example, if a 5-year-old asks, "What is birth?" you can respond, "When a baby comes out of a mother's body." If a 10-year-old asks the same question, your answer could have more detail. It might start with, "After 9 months of growing inside of the mother's uterus, a baby comes out through her vagina." Don't worry if your kid is in middle or high school and you haven't started talking with them about this stuff yet. It's never too late, and there are lots of ways to get the conversation going. Just don't try to catch up all at once. That can be overwhelming. It's better to have lots of little talks over time. The most important thing is to make it really clear that your kid that they can ask you questions or come to you for support without fear of shame or judgment. So how do I start conversations about sex and relationships with my kids? Talking with your kids about sex, relationships, and their health is a lifelong conversation. Doing a little bit at a time instead of having the talk takes pressure off of you and helps your kid process your values and information over time. Having regular conversations also sends a message that these topics are important enough to keep bringing up and are a normal part of life. Everyday life provides lots of opportunities for talking about sexuality and relationships. Here are some common teachable moments to look out for. When you, another family member, friend, or neighbor announces they are pregnant. When puberty, dating, LGBTQ issues, love, or sex comes up on a TV show, in a movie, or in a song on the radio. When gender stereotypes are pushed in ads, games, TVs, books, movies, etc. When you see unrealistic portrayals of or very sexualized bodies, i.e. Photoshop celebrities or models. Ads for pads or tampons, birth controls, or condoms. News stories or ads that talk about sex. And then when any of these things come up, jump in and start a conversation. Start with an open-ended question such as, what do you know about how pregnancy happens? What do you think about the fact that celebrity is photoshopped on the cover to look different than they do in real life? How do you feel about this ad for dolls only having pink and girls in it? What would you do if someone you were dating started acting like the character on this TV show? And here's some other ways to kick off the conversation. In elementary and middle school, give them books about anatomy or puberty and let them explore on their own. Check in with them to ask what they learned, what was confusing, and answer any questions they may have. Check in with them regularly about what's going on with them and their peers at school. Ask them about how they feel about their friendships and help guide them through any troubles they're having. Once they're older, ask them about crushes or dating or relationships. Ask them how they think they'll know when they're ready to have sex, including the responsibilities that come with it, like preventing unintended pregnancy and STDs. Be open and listen for their answers, fill in gaps of knowledge, and correct misinformation when you hear them. If they get embarrassed when you bring up any of these topics up, reassure them that it's okay to be embarrassed about this stuff, but they have nothing to be ashamed of. Give them your takes on things based on your values, and let them know they can always come to you to talk things through, get advice, find good information, or get access to healthcare. So how do I answer my kids' questions about sex and relationships? When your kid comes to you with a question about sex and relationships, take a second and appreciate the good job you've done to get to this point. If they feel comfortable asking you these questions, it means your kid trusts and respects you. Here's some tips for answering these questions. Don't jump to conclusions about why they're asking what they're asking. You can say, Can you tell me you already know about that? Or what have you heard about that? Keep your answers short and simple and explain new words that your kid might not have heard before. After giving an answer, keep the conversation open. You can say, "What other questions about stuff like this do you have?" Or, "What's going on in your life at school that made you think more about this stuff?" Check their understanding. After answering a question, you can ask, "Does that answer your question?" Or, "What do you think about that?" If you don't know the answer to something, you can look it up on your own together. You can say, "I'm glad you asked that question. I'm not sure how to explain it, what the answer is. Let's look it up." Remember, it's okay if you feel a little awkward or if you or your kid got embarrassed. Try to work through your embarrassment. It'll be worth it for both of you. Plus, the more practice you get answering tough questions, the easier it becomes. Uh, what can I? What else can I do to help my kids stay safe and healthy? The best way to keep your kids safe and healthy is to stay involved in their lives and to set some boundaries. Here's some good ways to get involved. Ask open-ended questions about their day at school, like what is the most memorable part of your day, or how are you feeling about your new teacher, class, school. Ask about their friends and get to know them and their parents. Encourage them to spend more time with kids who you think are a good influence. Always be aware of which adults are around when your kid is out or at other houses. Ask them questions about what they're up to online. Encourage them in their hobbies and interests. Be present at games, recitals, etc. when possible. Always be open to their questions. As kids grow into preteens and teens and start becoming more independent of you, setting some reasonable boundaries will make them less likely to engage in risky behaviors such as drinking, smoking, unprotected sex, or having sex before they're ready. Establish clear expectations like curfew, dating, rules about drugs and alcohol, etc., and check in regularly to make sure those expectations are met. You can make this a conversation with your teen, too. By listening to them and allowing them to negotiate, it shows that you respect them and understand that they are becoming more responsible for themselves. Encourage them to get involved in activities where an adult will be around, like after school clubs or sports. Know their know where they're going and who they'll be with, and don't allow preteens or teens to spend a lot of time alone without adults present. When preteens and teens are invited to each other's houses or to parties, make sure there are going to be adults there. That means being there when your teen hosts to make sure there aren't drugs or alcohol around, or if there are, that they're being safe. Um, if your teen is going somewhere else, you can call the parents of the hosting teen to make sure an adult will be around to supervise. Discourage preteens and teens from going out on school nights and dating or hanging out with older teens or young adults. Get to know your kid's friends, their parents, and especially the parent of anyone your kid might be dating. So what's this? I'm just gonna click on this. I don't know if I'll go through it. This is just about, we don't have to go through this one. I think the first one was pretty inclusive.
Okay.
So yeah, that's everything I had on the subject.
Okay. I think that's good. We went through a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to emphasize that sexuality does not mean sex,
Yes.
but sex education is important.
Yes.
But also, sexuality does not equal sex. I just
Right.
feel like that's very important for people to
Yes.
understand.
Yes. The reason I brought up the last article is I think it can apply to more than just sex. I think it can also
Oh,
apply
yeah.
to sexuality.
Oh, and having those conversations.
Yeah, like having conversations
Yes.
about like, oh, like I saw my friend has two dads. What does that mean?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Which I think it's easy for kids to understand, but
I would agree. But
yeah,
and then we also talked about how sexuality is not a choice.
yes,
Conversion therapy does not work.
right.
And
Oh
then
yeah,
we briefly, I mean, we kind of throughout the whole thing talked about how sexuality does not equal sexualization,
right.
but sexualization can fall under the umbrella of sexuality, as many
Yeah,
things do. And then obviously there's hypersexualization of like females. We talked about that briefly too.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
we definitely covered a lot, which is good. I think it's good to have those conversations. And I mean, I hope
yes,
people are able to take something from it, you know. That's always our hope. Every time
yeah,
is there's something you can, even if it's just one little thing, it's still something, you know.
Yeah.
And then obviously these videos will be there if you ever want to come back to them and see if you gain any other knowledge, or even us. We can always come back, and I feel like that's another nice part of it for me. Even is
Mhm.
I can always come back and rewatch this if I feel like I just want a refresher on the education that we go over, I guess is what
Yeah.
it would be. But and it's always good to watch other people's content too, because it's good to have that diversity, variety too. But
Yes.
I just like having our own little library of knowledge that we can
Yeah.
listen to whenever
Because we
we
go over a lot.
we do. Yeah.
It's not something we can just memorize all of it.
No, definitely
Like
not.
we it's gone over for 2 hours now.
Yeah,
Like I
which
don't
is
think we
great.
have enough. Yeah,
No, but
that's
at least
great.
that knowledge is out there too. So that's
Yeah.
important. Knowledge is important.
Yes.
But if there's anything you guys ever want us to talk about in future episodes, just leave a comment below.
You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and we do occasionally do Twitch live streams.
Yes, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you know when we do. Otherwise, we will see everyone next time.